Hello and welcome back to our CAEL language series. Today we're going to start a new season of episodes and some new lessons on the short listening part of the CAEL test, which would be part 3 of CAEL. This will be the first short listening practice that we will do in this series. Now, before we look at the practice question that we'll do together today, there are just a few things I wanted to mention about the listening parts of the CAEL test in general. So the short listening passage comes in part 3. And the short passage is going to be a little bit less formal than what you'll hear in the longer lectures on the test. So an example might be a teacher talking to a class full of students to prepare them for an upcoming assignment. There will be around 3 questions or so for you to answer based on this listening. And you're only ever going to hear the audio play one time. So it's really important to listen carefully as you hear the speaker talk. Now, keep your ear moving ahead in live time. And by that, what I mean is if you hear the speaker mention a word or a phrase that you're not familiar with, just let that go. It's important to focus on what you do understand, since you won't be able to pause the recording or listen to it again later. Now, answer every question. Don't leave anything blank. Even if you're uncertain, it's better to guess, because if you guess the correct answer, you will earn a point for that answer. If you leave a question blank, then there's no opportunity whatsoever to earn some points. So again, fill in everything, make sure it's complete before your time is up. Now, to complete the listening sections on CAEL, you'll want to think of this in about 3 different steps. So the very first thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a little bit of preview time. So for the short listening passages, you'll be given around 30 seconds. And in that 30 seconds, before the audio even plays, you're going to read over those 3 questions and the answer choices. Your job here is to note the key words so that you know what to listen for shortly. Once that 30 seconds is finished, that's when the audio is going to automatically start playing. You're going to answer the questions as you're listening. It's a little bit of multitasking, but you will not have time to take detailed notes. Again, your primary goal here is to make sure you've answered as many questions, if not all of the questions, as the speaker is talking. Now, as soon as that lecture finishes, remember, you won't hear it again, but you will be given a little bit of review time. So for those short listening passages, you'll have about 60 seconds more. So this is your opportunity to finish any outstanding questions and also to double check your work. Make sure you've answered correctly. If you need to make any changes, this would be the time to do it. Whatever you've got submitted on the computer screen, by the time the timer reaches 0, that's what's going to be submitted for marks. So please make sure you're happy with it before the time is up. Remember again, your primary goal is to answer the questions as the lecture is playing. You will not have time to take detailed notes, I don't think. So let's have a look at what the screen will look like when you sit down to write your CAEL test. So we know right now that we're doing the short listening passage, because the computer tells us so right up here. It says part 3, short listening. That preparation time clock is right here on the left side of your screen. And as soon as you come to the beginning of this test, it's going to start counting backwards from those 30 seconds. So in that preview time, this is where you'll move over then to the right-hand side of the screen. And you're going to use this time to read over the question and answer choices, again, so that you know what to listen for shortly. So that first question, you'll notice, says the purpose for the assignment is to. This type of question is a drop-down question. So all you would do in this case is click on that little green arrow. And when you do that, the computer will pop open the 4 multiple choice answers. So you see them here. Now I'm just going to move those questions 2 and 3 down a little bit here, so we can see all of our questions on one screen at the same time as we study together today. So very quickly then, in your 30 seconds, this is exactly what you would do. You'll skim read over the questions and answer choices, looking for those keywords. So question number 1, we say, is all about the purpose of the assignment. And when we look at those 4 answer choices, we see things that talk about note-taking, about, supporting a position, doing some kind of research here online, and also using resources. So I don't think it's necessary to write these keywords out on paper. Remember, you've only got 30 seconds of time here anyway. But as long as you're reading those through and just tucking them back into your memories, You'll know a little bit more what to focus on when the speaker's talking shortly. So question 2 is all about a tutor by the looks of things. I guess we'll hear the speaker tell us about a tutor and what the tutor can assist with. So our choices deal with essay format, completing the essay on time, again, taking notes from a website, or looks like proofreading the essay for typos. So again, we'll listen intently for the speaker to mention something about a tutor, and then we'll know where our answer lies. Question 3 here talks about the instructor. I guess we're trying to figure out what is true about this instructor. So the choices there talk about how they might discourage collaboration, provide minimal direction, value organization and work ethic, and possibly they're new to the profession. So these are 4 very different choices by the looks of things. Now, one thing I noticed here as we read through question 3 is the type of question it is. So there's a signal word right here, the word likely. This tells us that question 3 is an inference question. And what that means then is as the speaker is talking, these 4 answer choices are not going to be stated directly. Instead, what we'll need to do is listen to the speaker and learn what we can about the instructor. And then after we've listened to the lecture, hopefully one of these answers will make sense. We'll put the clues together, or we'll put the information from the lecture together so that we understand more about this instructor and know what is true about him or her. So once your 30 seconds is finished, and again, that should be enough time to skim read these 3 questions and answers. Think about it as 10 seconds per question if you'd like. As soon as that clock reaches 0, the audio plays immediately and automatically. So right here, where that time clock was counting down for your prep, you now see a playing bar. So that little blue bar on the screen that you see now is representing the timer. There's no longer a time in seconds. So as the speaker's talking, that blue bar on the test is going to move all the way over to the right-hand side. And eventually it's going to fill up the rest of that white bar. So it will take approximately 2 to 2.5 minutes for that to happen. That's the average length of time that these short listening passages are. So what I'd like to do next here is hopefully at home, if you'd like to pause this episode just for a moment and go grab yourself a piece of paper and a pen, even if you'd like. I'd love for you to listen to this lecture. I'm going to play it all through once, just like you'd hear it on the CAEL test. And I'm hoping that at home, you're able to answer these questions to the best of your ability. You can write them down on a piece of paper for now, since you clearly can't click on this computer screen. After we've heard the audio together today, we will take up the questions. So we'll talk through each and every one of them to make sure everybody knows what the answers are and how we determine them. All right, so we're going to listen to the audio now. Remember, it would only ever play once on the official test. Here we go.
Everyone, I hope you enjoyed a restful weekend and are ready to resume our class studies about urban infrastructure. Today, we will consider the financial and environmental factors related to building and maintaining bridges and traffic tunnels in medium-sized cities. You'll have the first half of this morning's class to review the information on Ellisdale that has been uploaded to our course website. I encourage you to take notes on important details, because the lecture that will follow our mid-morning break will cover a variety of issues related to bridge and tunnel construction. You will need to consider this information in relation to what you know about Ellisdale and decide which structure best suits the needs of the city. On Wednesday morning, you will write an in-class essay which will clearly state if Ellisdale should build a new bridge or dig a traffic tunnel. You must provide sufficient information from the lecture and from the city's profile that you'll read about online to justify your choice. You will have 45 minutes to complete this essay in class. Your essay will be graded based on overall content and organization. Grammar and vocabulary will also be considered. This assignment is worth 10% of your final grade. If you have any questions about this in-class essay, you are strongly encouraged to ask your teaching assistant, Ms. Wong, during tomorrow morning's tutorial. The Learning Center is also open until 8 p.m. tomorrow evening. Feel free to book a session with one of the available tutors if you would like additional writing support. The tutors won't write the essay for you, but they will provide you with useful tips and strategies to help you structure and organize your writing. Do you have any questions before you begin your assigned readings about Ellisdale on the website?
Professor, can we bring the notes we make today about Ellisdale into class with us on Wednesday to help us with the essay?
Good question. Yes, the notes you take today will be a valuable resource for your in-class essay, and you are welcome to bring them to class with you. Be concise, though. You want to spend most of your time writing the essay, not reading over your notes to locate relevant details.
All right, so that's the end of that lecture from beginning to end. Again, on the real test, you hear it only once, so I'm only going to play it that once for you as well today. But what I will do, since we are studying together, is I'm trying to be helpful by providing you with a transcript. So what you're now looking at on the left side of this screen is the transcript of the lecture that you've just heard. Again, on the real CAEL test, there would never be a transcript. You're expected to simply listen and answer the questions as you go. But I think it's most helpful for all of us as we're tuning in together today to actually see the words that we've just listened to. And that way you'll know for sure where these answers have come from. So let's start with question 1 here at the top. We were trying to figure out the purpose for this assignment. So I'm hoping that as the instructor started to talk to the class, you picked up what the class is all about. He did mention something about urban infrastructure right at the beginning. And he also introduced the name of a city that these students are going to be looking at in class. So the name of that city is Ellisdale, and it's been mentioned many times throughout this lecture. So I guess the gist of this topic, based on what we hear at the beginning anyway, is all about whether this city would require bridges or traffic tunnels. So again, it's a study in infrastructure for these cities. So that just gives us the background. It doesn't give us the answer yet for this assignment, but at least right in the beginning, we're able, as listeners, to understand exactly what this class is all about. So as the instructor continued to talk, you might notice that some of these ideas mentioned are fairly close to some of the answer choices over on the right-hand side. So the first thing that was mentioned is about notes being uploaded on a course website. Now, when you look over at the answer choices on the right, you'll see the third one down, answer choice C, actually talks about doing online research. So at a first glance, you might think that could be the answer. But as the professor continued to talk, he also mentioned about taking notes. He encourages the students to do this. And again, looking back at your answer choices, you'll notice that answer choice A also talks about taking notes. So far we've matched up some of the words. What we need to focus on, though, is the purpose for the assignment. So even though we will be taking notes and doing research, I'm not convinced as the listener that that's why we're doing this assignment in the first place. So again, an efficient listener would continue to follow along with the lecture. And shortly after these introductions here, the professor then starts talking a little bit more about what they'll do with this information. So specifically, the instructor says that you're going to decide then for Ellisdale, for the city, which structure, meaning is it the bridge or the traffic tunnel, which structure best suits the needs of the city. So when I go back to those answer choices, my eyes are pausing on answer choice B. If we have to decide or choose which structure is probably the best choice for Ellisdale, that deals with selecting a position, right? Again, the position meaning, is it the bridge? Is it the traffic tunnel? So I think answer choice B is correct. And as the instructor continued to talk, we just follow along. This is the next part of the transcript you're now looking at. This is the first time actually that the professor mentions that the students will be writing an essay. So at least we now know what the assignment is. We're trying to figure out the purpose. And sure enough, the professor tells us, confirms for us. He says that you will clearly state if Ellisdale should build a new bridge or dig a traffic tunnel. So if we have to state which structure is going to be best for Ellisdale, that's the same as identifying the position. So you see, we've already matched the first half of answer choice B based on what we're learning there in the lecture. The professor continued with that last detail that we needed to hear. The professor says to us, you're going to justify your choice. So to justify your choice is the same thing as supporting that position. So answer choice B is definitely correct. We can confidently select it and then move on. So again, remember, we're talking about this slowly and carefully so we can all see where the answer is coming from. But on the test, as you're listening, this is the thought process that I'm hoping you're going through. Again, you're taking in that information and you can see those 4 answer choices. So you're considering them and then you click on, in this case, answer choice B, as soon as the professor gives you that information that you see underlined in green here on the screen. Let's move on now to question 2. So this was the one that dealt with the tutor. So that means then our ears are open and listening for a mention of a tutor somewhere in the lecture. And we know the answer will be nearby. So a little bit later on, down here towards the bottom of this section of transcript, this is where we first hear the word tutor. So we learn here that if the students go to see a tutor, the tutor will not write the essay for us, of course, but the teacher says the tutor will provide you with useful tips and strategies to help you structure and organize your writing. So when you look back at your 4 answer choices, the wording is different. So if we're going to structure and organize our writing, we don't see the words structure and organize writing in those 4 answer choices. Instead, what I'm noticing in answer choice A, it's talking about the essay format. So the format of the essay is the same thing as the structure of the essay. Those 2 words are synonyms in a way. They're paraphrased ideas. So it looks to me like answer choice A is indeed correct. But just before, we can click that for now, but maybe before we move on to question 3, we should quickly just consider the other 3 answers, just in case we've misunderstood something. So the second one, answer B, talks about completing the essay on time. That's not even mentioned here with that section in the lecture about the tutor. So it can't make sense. Answer choice C is about making notes from the website. No, the teacher didn't say anything about the tutors helping us with that research. And last but not least there, answer D, talking about reviewing the essay for typos. Remember, the professor said the tutor will not write this essay for you, and it doesn't sound like they're going to help us proofread it either. So those 3 bottom choices, they're not correct. They don't make any sense based on what we've heard. And the question does say, according to the passage. So we're going to confidently now select answer choice A, since we've matched up structure and organization in the lecture to format in the answer choice. So we'll leave that as our choice, and we'll move on now to the last question. So this one might be a little bit trickier to answer for some of us. Again, it is an inference question based on this word. What is likely true of the instructor? So we might as well just finish talking right now about the transcript. I've got the last section of it on the screen for you here now. So we've already learned quite a bit about this teacher just through our discussions. But this lecture finishes with the teacher inviting questions from the class. Anything more they want to know, he says. So we get a student question, and the teacher answers and says, the students are welcome to bring the notes into class with them when they write that essay. So that might be a helpful detail to note about the instructor. All right. So I would say then, looking at these answer choices, we have to, I guess, walk through them one at a time to see if which one is the most logical. So that's what we need to do with inference. We're always selecting the best answer from the list that seems to make the most sense based on what we've learned. So let's just consider them one at a time. So starting here at answer choice A, this one says that the instructor discourages collaboration with peers. Now, collaboration is when you work with other people. We think about that for a moment. We know the instructor encourages the students to book an appointment with the tutor, right? We've already talked about that. But a tutor, that's not the same as a peer. A peer is a classmate. So we can't very well consider that part of the lecture about the tutor to confirm or deny answer choice A. But I do remember hearing earlier in this lecture about a tutorial. A tutorial is something completely different. Okay, we'll return to the previous part of this lecture. A tutorial is when the students would meet in class, not with the regular teacher, but with the teaching assistant. So do you remember when the professor was talking about Ms. Wong? And he says to the students, tomorrow in your tutorial with Ms. Wong, you'll be able to ask her any questions you might have about this essay. So if you can imagine a group of students sitting with a teaching assistant, everybody can ask questions and have those questions answered to them. That is an example of collaborating, working together and discussing ideas together. And because the peers, the whole class is there, I think that this instructor obviously is encouraging collaboration. He wants the students to work together and ask those questions. So answer choice A here doesn't seem to make sense. It's not likely true about this professor. He doesn't discourage collaboration at all. In fact, it seems to me like he's encouraging people to speak up, ask questions, and share ideas. So we're going to eliminate question or answer choice A here from consideration. So moving on to the second one, where it says they provide minimal direction or feedback. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me either, because the teacher gives very specific parameters about what this assignment is all about. He tells them how long they're going to have to write the essay in class. In this case, it's 45 minutes. He tells them before they go in for that essay how exactly it's going to be graded. He gives them the percentage of the grade that it's going to be assessed on. Let's see, what else does he do? He encourages them to visit the Learning Center, even gives them the opening hours of the Learning Center, and so on. There might even be more examples here, but that's a lot of direction to provide to the students about their upcoming essay. So answer choice B says providing minimal direction or feedback. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense for this teacher based on what we've just discussed. It's not logical. So we're going to eliminate choice B, and we'll move on now to answer choice C. So it says they value organization and work ethic. So we've just finished talking about all of the details and the direction that this teacher is giving to the students based on how that essay is going to be graded and what it's worth and so on. He also clearly establishes what the topic of that paper is going to be so that they can complete their research. Remember, we've established as well that he's going to encourage them to go into the Learning Center and gives them the opening hours. So these details, once again, certainly to me, prove that this instructor is very organized. He's put a lot of forethought into planning this assignment out and preparing those students to do well. So that shows that he's organized, all right? He values organization. But the second part of this answer is about work ethic. So we have to consider that part too before we select answer choice C. So if you have a strong work ethic, it means that you're going to work hard to do well on this assignment. When I think about all of the work these students are doing in, frankly, a short amount of time, I think that answer C probably is correct. I mean, when we return to the beginning, think back to the beginning of the lecture when the teacher started talking. Remember how he greeted them after the weekend? He said, "Oh, I hope you had a restful weekend, and we're now going to study bridges and tunnels and so on." So the weekend takes place on Saturday, Sunday. So class here is happening on a Monday. We can just make that inference together. So if they're starting their studies on a Monday morning, and the teacher divides the class Monday morning into two parts. So first, they're going to do their online research, they're going to take notes, and then they're going to sit in on a lecture. So that's already a lot of work to be done on that first morning where they're studying this unit. And then we know that the essay itself will be written 2 days later on a Wednesday. And in the interim, this is when the instructor encourages students to attend this tutorial, ask questions, as well as visit the Learning Center, because on the Tuesday is when I guess the Learning Center hours are open late. So just think about all the steps required from the Monday to the Wednesday when they write this assignment. That shows a tremendous amount of effort is going to be required, which also tells us that this teacher values work ethic tremendously. So I would suggest strongly that answer C makes the best logical choice. This teacher does seem to value organization and work ethic. And again, before we leave off and before we finish this part of the test, it's helpful just to look at that last answer. Again, just make sure we've not missed anything. So answer choice D says the instructor is new to the profession. And based on how much planning has gone into this assignment, how organized he is, how much knowledge this teacher has about the Learning Center, the opening hours, the tutors, and so on, it tells me that this teacher is likely has some experience anyways working in this position, or at least at this school. So although new teachers could be very organized too, I hope anyway, I think if I had to choose between answer choices C and D, C is the stronger choice based on what we've learned about today in this lecture. So that's how we would end up selecting answer choice C. This teacher clearly values organization and work ethic, and we would move on from there. All right, so you'd have enough time, we hope, to finish those 3 questions before the timer reaches 0. So can we wrap up right now just talking about some of these listening strategies we've done, just to make sure we've all got a plan of action as we continue to study. So remember, you will have a little bit of time to preview the questions before the audio even begins. So use that time to skim read over questions and answers, pull out the keywords and note them. Just tuck them into your memory so that you now at least know what to listen for. That's step number 1. You're noting those keywords. The second part happens when the audio begins. You're listening intently to everything the speaker says, because remember, you hear it only once. And remember as well to listen for synonyms and paraphrased ideas. Even some of those questions we practiced together today demonstrated different words in the lecture, like structure and organization, matching answer choices later, like format, right? So it's up to you, the test taker, to make those connections. Answer as many questions as you can while the audio is playing. It's ideal if you could even finish all 3 of these questions before the audio comes to the end. You remember too, I didn't mention this earlier, now is a good time to mention, that most answers are presented in the exact same order that you're going to be listening to anyway. And that's what happened today, if you notice, when we went through questions 1, 2, and 3, the information from the transcript more or less followed that same order. There might be some exceptions, but that's a general rule that we can rely upon. And again, you're not going to have a lot of time to take detailed notes, and you shouldn't have to, at least not for the short listening. You're only going to answer these questions and move on, so you don't have to retain the knowledge there for any other activities. So again, focus, listen, answer the questions, and do your best to complete them. You will have some review time. So for the short listening, that's about a minute. So again, if you didn't finish something during the lecture, that's okay. You still have that minute to finish up whatever is outstanding. And again, to double check your work. I think that's always a good idea as well. Go back, read them through, make sure you're happy with your choices, and do that before that timer reaches 0. And last reminder to make sure everything's answered. Don't leave anything blank. So again, you could guess lucky and earn a point for that question. All right, so that's a little bit of review there for the short listening passage on CAEL. Join me next week as we continue to work on our language skills. See you then.